button? There's the button. Cool. All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming to OffSec. Let me play these slides. Tonight we're going to be going over social engineering. Slides are available in the top right-hand corner. Can you guys all hear me still fine? Just fine?
Yep.
Cool. Make sure you fill out attendance. It really helps us out. Know where our numbers are at. Just, gauge interest and whatnot. So please go ahead and do that if you haven't already. Really appreciate that. Some club events going on. We've got Try Hack Me at 6 p.m. Central, Help Night Discord. Keep checking CTF in Kernel Popper Slack or Discord General for updates on that. This time, if we do get at least 4 people, I'll be doing prizes, and that'll just be like first place, Raspberry Pi, and then next 2 after that, just some Arduino stuff. Talking about the Dean's Cup, we got Hack O Vacation over winter break. More info on the Slack, OffSec, and DSU channels. Noob Truth is over. Thanks for playing, everybody. Shane, I don't know if you wanted to do the congrats and stuff.
Yay! Congrats.
Congrats on Team 2 and Team 5. Really awesome stuff going on. You do get a prize, a crisp high five. Okay, that's pretty awesome. Wish I had that. CBTC, we're still waiting on news of the wildcard slots to see if we get to go to, I think it's New York, right? I'm gonna assume, yeah.
It would be New York. You cut out for a second.
Oh, gotcha. Sweet. New York. Hopefully we...
Also,
Go ahead.
Try Hack Me on Friday still, right?
Yeah, I announced that at the start. That's the first one, bro.
Yeah.
It's all good. We'll also be getting our feedback from CPTC. So, yeah. We've also got officer nominations going on. We've got 1 slot open for the spring 2021 semester. You can nominate somebody. It could be yourself. It could be somebody else at officer.offsec.club. And you'll have to sign in with your Trojans address. The timelines, nominations until midnight Central today. All nominated will be contacted to confirm by the 15th November. Elections will start right after that, 16th, and it'll run to the 20th, almost the 21st. And it'll be like previous years, how we've done that fill-out form. And new officer will be announced on the 21st. All right, so we're going to be going into social engineering today. This is one of my really favorite topics, just because when I was first getting into information security, social engineering was one of the routes that I took because I wasn't very good with technical stuff right off the bat. Again, you can submit questions at questions.offsec.club, and I have those pulled up here. We've got 1 question so far. What is hackication? What is hack? I think they meant to say hack a vacation or whatever that is. Was that Shane?
It's something the Beacom College Dean is putting on over Christmas break. So there's it's like create a 5-minute video outlining your tool or approach. It's like a problem solving thing. If you want more info, there's a mailing list that you can go register at. There's a flyer inside of DSU, and I just posted it to OffSec a couple minutes ago as well.
Yep, I think it's on the 8th of January.
Yeah, so you have plenty of time to actually get in and do things. But there is a monetary prize as well. So
awesome. Thank you so much for clearing that up. So going ahead and starting off, what is social engineering? A lot of people use social engineering, or human hacking is one that's been popularized as well. It's mainly boiling down to pretending to be from a reputable source and getting information using that pretext. Oh, I can see my emoji. It doesn't load properly. That's funny. It's also using the knowledge of human behavior to get a certain response out of somebody and make them do something they normally wouldn't do for, an unauthenticated, quote-unquote, attacker. Pretty yikes. I think somebody added that in there. That's funny. So why do it? Why do we need a social engineer? Well, we don't always need to, but in terms of an engagement, your attackers will be able to social engineer. Attackers will do everything in scope, because everything is in scope for real attackers. You can gain raw credentials. You can actually put your cross-site scripting and cross-site request forgery findings to use by having them click payloaded links and whatnot to get some sort of session or some other data out of them. Now, defenders will be looking at social engineering, and it's definitely going to be a huge push towards end user education, just because you want to have an engagement where your social engineering is present, and then you want to see what worked on the test to get access from certain people and have some training against that. I saw a talk at B-Sides Tulsa 2019 from this gentleman who did forensic investigations for social engineering incidents, and he actually discussed like a formal interview process for these people who had been technically victims of a social engineering attack. What he would do is he'd bring them in, he'd question them, basic stuff, he'd make sure they're comfortable, and he would ask them a series of questions, and it was anything from like, did you eat 30 minutes before this phone call or this email, to like, what made you click on the link outright? And that's just to kind of gauge the surroundings of the person to see what will allow attackers that kind of laxness in terms of getting information or getting the victim to do what they want. So that's some few reasons to do it. So a big factor of social engineering can be building trust, building a pretext. Your pretext can be defined as like who you are in that moment for a certain interaction. So normally your victim won't just disclose anything outright. If you're a stranger and you're calling and you say like, hey, can I get your password for your account or something? That's not going to fly all the time. Hopefully it doesn't. I say hopefully it doesn't. Maybe it's been done before. Not in my experience, but who knows. Now, to acquire this information, there's going to be a number of information gathering techniques that you'll want to use to get information on your subject. Information like likes and dislikes, any profiles they're following, certain hotspot hangouts or something like that. This can come from like Facebook and Twitter and all that. Now, getting more technical, you might see stuff on GitHub. Maybe you identify certain coding flaws relative to a certain developer on GitHub if you're in a super technical situation and whatnot. That's also, some information. I like to say that with social engineering, there's no such thing as too much information. Take that as far as you will. Another note is if your victim doesn't get what you want them to do, there's not really much you can do. I do slightly disagree with that statement just because everybody cracks with time. Same with computers. It's just a matter of time before a quote-unquote O-Day or gets popped on these computers. Same thing with people. There's certain motives that you have to identify about your subject that will allow you to succeed into getting them to do something that you want. Now, granted, like if you're on a single phone call and you're being pushy and they say, hey, I'm not going to do anything for you, then in that moment, yeah, there's not really much you can do. You kind of have to retreat and make sure to gather more information and attack it furiously next time. So now one thing with doing this is if you're using a pretext and you're already on a phone call, you're already interacted with certain people, you're going to leave a trace in terms of your presence. So guard will be put up and suspicious meters will be ticked per se. Like people are going to say, hey, Bob from accounting just asked for my banking information or something like that. That's weird. One way to elicit information if you're just kind of getting base information is not use a pretext, like a well-built pretext that's within the company at all. I was on a certain engagement where the basic information I gathered to build a schedule of the help desk I was attacking for this entire institution was just like giving out generic descriptions of people. I used to say, or I would be on the phone call and I'd say, yeah, hey, I used to work there once, and this would be under the pretext of me trying to reset my password or something like that. I didn't have a valid account at the place, so their systems would constantly load with these weird names I would give them because they don't exist in the database. but I'd elicit information about the help desk and hours and schedules of each person working there and who worked there and get names. And I started giving them generic descriptions like, yeah, I used to work with this big blonde dude. And they started dropping names left and right. And I was like, yeah, and their supervisor was like this dude who worked in the back. And they gave me that name as well. And that was really fun just to get that initial information and plan out the rest of the attacks from then on. And that was all using like really cheap pretext personalities, if you want to call them that. Not really much effort into a social life for each of those personalities. So another thing is it's good to be able to think on your feet. If you've already started an engagement and there's a certain opportunity that comes up, you may not be able to just say, oh, I can't take that opportunity right now, or take advantage of that, what seems to be a vulnerability. You may have to take advantage of it and go through with it. I don't really have too much of a good example with that, besides this one time where I was trying to get somebody to run some PowerShell commandlets and exfiltrate them to Gmail. Halfway through, they were asking me, like, oh, what is this PowerShell code doing? And at that point, I was like, well, I could explain everything that it's doing and just talk about PowerShell and whatnot. Or I could, somehow get them to run even more commandlets. Some commandlets that are going to prompt for weird errors, like, hey, you need to get different credentials, or you need administrative access, or something like that. And yeah, that I got them to run some PowerShell commandlets with administrative access and exfiltrate the data to a Gmail that I made. But yeah, that's one of the things where it just takes time in terms of profiling a subject. Some common approaches that I've seen from friends in the industry and Twitter a lot is impersonate a C-level. Have a sense of pretext to where you have that pretext and you can abuse the heck out of it. So you can say, hey, I'm the CIO. I need this done now. This person's failed me already. I'm going to fire like 2 more people. I need this done now or else I can't do my job. You could also impersonate tech support. One thing with tech support is you could use certain things that are going wrong at the place as a pretext. So for instance, another engagement I was on, there was a warning banner on their website where they said, if you're experiencing O365 issues, don't worry, we're working on it, we're getting a solution ready. Well, me pretexting as tech support, this was actually awesome. Because what I could do is I could then call users and I could say, hey, do you know how we've been having issues with like Office 365 not allowing people to log in and whatnot? And they'd be like, yeah, we've had these issues. And at that point, you've built some sort of trust. Even though it's public information, it's something that's personal to the user's work. And that's a big factor of having that type of pretext. I will say try not to make crazy stories with that. Like you may have seen those emails where it's talking about, hey, this is super hacker from the dark web. I have your address. I have your password. Send me Bitcoin. I have installed a Trojan in your Facebook or something like that. That's pretty far-fetched, and maybe somebody who's not that technical will say like, hey, that doesn't connect. Doesn't sound right. Anyways, moving on to phishing specifically. Phishing is something that you should customize towards the target. There are different types of phishing. A lot of people just, in my opinion, make vocab words for each of these things because people like vocab words for some reason. But some key vocab words for phishing are whaling. Whaling is going to be going after C-levels. It's going to be going after like big targets and whatnot. Pretty customized payloads in terms of like the distractions or whatever you fish them with. Talking about spear phishing is going to be more targeted towards individuals, may not be C-levels exactly. It may be certain people who work in certain departments. Maybe you need to get sysadmin credentials or something of that nature. That's spear phishing. Phishing is obviously voice phishing, calling over the phone, doing something like that. I always say try to voice fish when you can, just because for me at least, it's a rush. It's fun. There is an engagement I was on where literally before I was about to make this call, I went to the bathroom and I puked because I was so nervous. It was my first gigs in kind of InfoSec and doing that type of engagement, and I just remember going to the bathroom, doing that, and I was like, oh, there's no way this is gonna work. There's no way this is gonna work. And I made the call, got things worked out, and they didn't suspect a thing. I had access to the help desk ticketing system because I actually worked there part time, and or part time as a help desk technician. But I was looking at the ticket that was supposed to be put in for my call, and the description for the ticket was just this user, I was impersonating a certain help desk supervisor. This user needed help with PowerShell or something of that nature. It was something super vague that went under the radar, in my opinion. Now, looking back, it could still be caught, of course, but that time was awesome. So talking about more technical things, getting into the actual tools used, Social Engineering Toolkit is one of these. I think, yeah, it's default built into Kali. It's made by TrustedSec, and it's got different attack vectors that it can use. Let's see, somebody's got a question. It's like the Skyrim stealth meter. Yeah, a lot of things felt like that. Yeah, flying under the radar is pretty fun in terms of social engineering. Let's see, double check that. Okay. They've got WebDrive by. I actually am not familiar with too many of these attack vectors. I've only used I believe the credential harvesting attack vector, which allows you to like copy a page or use a preset page and harvest credentials that way, and it'll host it locally. You've also got some fake wireless access point stuff and mass emailing campaigns that you can use. There's also GoFish, if you haven't heard of that. GoFish is a cool like GUI thing where you can set up campaigns and have users organized into nice categories and groups. Definitely a good option if you're in penetration testing and you're trying to do a bigger engagement. This is pretty easy to go through. You can even fire up Set and Kali and probably get a credential harvester working in like maybe 12 seconds. Some common vectors of phishing. You'll normally have emails is a big way to do it. Emails, you hear about end users clicking on emails all the time and how, they'll be asked to download this doc from an email or something like that. Email is definitely an effective method. There are some preventions that are on email nowadays that prevent spoofing, or I should say mitigate spoofing, like DKIM and DMARC stuff, and you can see that in actually the company's DNS records. If you query those TXT records, you'll see something about like SPF, DKIM, and stuff like that. Basically, it makes it very difficult to spoof the headers and who that email comes from. Another part of phishing is going to be malicious attachments. If you've ever gotten an email or some drive-by download that gives you a Word doc or a PDF, that could hold a certain exploit of nature that would pop a shell on you or do certain actions. Normally these are called macros, but it's not just macros. Some people could also abuse like Adobe Reader exploits and load up a PDF and host it somewhere and give it to you. Phone calls is another method. Thank you, Mitnick. Mitnick glorifies himself. He was cool once, but yeah, that's what I have to say about it. We'll get more on macros. Speaking about macros, we're here. We've got OLE, which I forgot what it stands for specifically, but it's basically a way for you in Office to link objects to a document. So what you can actually do is you can go here in the link or in the insert section. For me, I had to expand my window like full size to see this object, so that might be a thing. This is in PowerPoint, by the way. And then you'll just insert a new object, you'll insert a package, and then you can link that to whatever you want. For instance, mine's linked to a Visual Basic script that will try to run. I think now if you have default Office settings, it will actually prevent the execution of certain file extensions. But there are a lot of ways to try to study and get around those. It just depends on your creativity and how curious you are with it. That's why I still had it here. It may seem out of date, but it's still a good technique to just show, hey, there's an inherent problem with inserting random stuff into these documents. With macros, many of you may have used macros. There's some scripts that'll generate malicious macros for you that use like Metasploit modules or Metasploit payloads, I should say. And I'll have those linked in the resources slide at near the end. Say, oh, let's see. Can we social engineer Tristan? No. I will say no, but like you gotta ask him, right? Like my authorization doesn't mean anything. If you want, like, kind of tempted to say, hey, send me emails, and I'll open them in a sandbox or something like that. And if you want to pop a shell, try to pop a shell, then you can shoot me those. I'm fine with it. You know, yeah. Send them my way. If you find something, please let me know. That'll be awesome. Be responsible with it. But yeah. All right, next slide. Talking about another tool, Cred Sniper is a Black Hills InfoSec tool. It's more modern, in my opinion, than a lot of others in terms of talking about the pre-made pages and modules. I've got the GitHub for it up there, but you can make like a fake Gmail login. There's a few templates on there already. I think it also does 2FA except for Gmail, because recently I tried it and the Gmail two-factor authentication did not work. It also has a cool little helper if you have a Let's Encrypt or a Cloudflare cert, so that you can get SSL running on your server with that. And I can actually, let's get into it a little bit, because we got a couple of demos here. CD documents, actually, CD downloads. Can you all see my screen just fine?
Yes.
Cool. All right, just making sure. CD Cred Sniper. So right now I'm just going to deploy a Gmail module, and I'm not going to do like SSL or any 2FA right now. It technically is capable of it on some other platforms. The 2FA works, but Gmail hasn't worked for me. So we'll do that. All right. So then if I go to like a web browser, so we've got this pretty good, like, I'm not a front-end web designer or dev, but this is a beautiful Google sign-in page. And I think it does the weird Ajax thing where it'll, dang it. It should be doing the like cool little Ajax thing where it'll say, like, hey, enter your password now or something like that. Mine's probably not working for dependency reasons because I'm not technically connected to the internet in this box. But yeah, Cred Sniper is a pretty cool one. I've used it on a previous engagement. Pretty nice, in my opinion. So let's talk about the next demo we got is Pineapple, Evil Portal Capture Pages. If anybody has heard of those before, this is pretty much just that. I've got a portal I want to show here. Let me turn on Wi-Fi, or restart Wi-Fi, I should say. And I'll double check questions right now. Okay, no new questions. Get this, and I've got my my Pineapple running a web page right now. That should be, if my adapter's connected, cool. Ah, dang it. Give it up for live demos, everybody. Huh, that's interesting. Oh, okay, so here we got my SSID of do not connect. I'll go ahead and connect. We're breaking that rule. If I try to go to, and normally on mobile devices it'll just pop up. It'll try to like make a request for some connectivity check. Oh, it's just disconnected real quick. Here we go. Open network login page. And I've got this fancy little, like, oh, I need a sign in type thing. So if I go here, like breadmin at breadcorp.net. Nice password, bro. Hit this, and we do get an error. I'm still working on kind of the back end stuff for that. But essentially, this will start giving people internet access who are connected to this access point. And we've captured the credentials plain text, which is awesome. We don't have to work to like crack any hashes or anything like that. Let's see. Somebody says, does pineapple run on pizza? No, but it does run on a cool little device, and you can probably get it running on a pie. Pizza pie. That'd be cool. So, talking about social engineering in the... Oh, dang it. Give me 1 second. Talking about social engineering in the wild and kind of public examples that have been made of it. RSA was hacked with a malicious Excel attachment. I've got those. These are all like documents, articles that are attached to it. If you want to click those, I hope they're not payloaded by any means, but if they are, let us know. We've got Target with a point of sale. I almost read that wrong for a second. They did start a phishing campaign on a trusted vendor. Yahoo was breached as well with the spear phishing of an engineer who had elevated privileges. Twitter recently was actually, you might have seen this, Twitter was breached using leaked credentials in, I think, a Slack channel, and it was used for a Bitcoin spam. And these happen all the time. These are just the ones that we see, maybe because they're from huge companies, but probably happening all the time. How to practice very carefully. There are some good human hacking conferences or presentations that you can look up. I do recommend Chris Hadnagy. Hopefully I didn't butcher that. I probably did. He's got awesome talks on the topic, and he goes into research on Mr. Ekman's research on microexpressions and like those small expressions that your face makes that can spring a certain feeling of whatever you've expressed to another individual in the conversation. SecCTF, I think we didn't get accepted this year, but that'll be a thing next year as well if anybody's interested. We've also got CSC 492, which is a social engineering class offered in spring 2021. If you're like me and you're broke and you can't take it, that's cool. Like, hey, it happens. There are still open slots for undergrad and graduates. You can also, this last part, I don't recommend everybody do it, but if you want to like maybe test some things or be aware of your surroundings, try to fish your own accounts, or not like ask credentials from yourself, I should restate that, but in terms of using the phone to get account information by using maybe your first and last name. There was an example with an ISP I had back home where I left a message and I said, hey, my name's Angel Gamboa. I wanted to know if I could get my internet speed upgraded. And it was the weekend, so like I was supposed to get a call back from a supervisor or something. The supervisor called me back the following Monday, and she disclosed to me, or rather she called me and she asked, is this Angel Gamboa? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, oh, okay, is your current address? And she gave me my address, and I was like, yeah, that's my address. And then at that point I was interested, so I was like, all right, what phone number do you have on file? And started asking what I thought they had on file, like phone number, date of birth, stuff like that. I didn't get date of birth, but I did get my own phone number and the address, which I thought was interesting. Those examples, just kind of be more aware of your surroundings and what happens. I think a while back there was like a flu shot big thing going on where you had to take your student ID, but apparently you didn't really need your student ID. They didn't prompt, at least not for me and my roommate and I should say. We got our flu shots without showing that ID or anything. And I've got a dump of resources here in the back. So you've got the macro abuse using OLE, the object linking stuff, and a generator for macros here at the bottom. And then you've got basic social engineering stuff, Christopher Hadnagy books. You've also got the Paul Ekman resources and his research on micro expressions. And Evil Jinx 2 is another kind of like phishing framework. I do believe they support two-factor authentication for GitHub and a couple of other sites, like maybe Twitter, I think. I forget. But yeah. Any questions? I will check these questions. Not a questions, but you're speaking in waveforms. Yeah, I'll have to investigate why. That's a thing. That's pretty much all I have for this presentation. So thank you everybody for coming out. I really do appreciate it. If there are no other questions, I'll go ahead and end the stream.